A lot about Western society that disturbs me greatly, disturbs many of us. But the question is, are you thereby advocating that in the new Muslim effort to become part of the mainstream, which I see happening in North America, in Western Europe, you are saying that you do not feel that women, for example, Islamic women, Muslim women, should now assume major roles of responsibility in business, in government, in other areas of Western society? And the Muslim societies are one question, but I'm also asking the question of Western societies, because you almost seem to me to be advocating that because of a certain difference, that Muslim women should not seek this role in Western societies, and I would have some problems with that.
Thank you.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
I don't believe that anything I said women should not be involved in the power struggle. We need to be involved. It's obligatory upon a Muslim woman to be involved when there is wrong being committed. That hadith that was read this morning is applicable to the believers, of which I'm one. However, what I am saying is very difficult for us to deal with, it's difficult for Western women also, is the fact that in getting into this struggle, which is severely difficult, it is a power struggle against a patriarchy as well as a very dominant male society, is the fact that Islam commands us. We may go out and work. We are encouraged to contribute to the ummah. We have an obligation to contribute, as particularly women like me whose children are grown. We have an obligation to get out there and to struggle. But we cannot throw off Islam in order to go into that struggle. The struggle has to change, has to adapt to Islamic principle, to the fact that I am equal, I have every right to go and work. If I want to be an engineer and go to work and I have a full office staff of men to deal with, then inshallah I will deal with them. But I will deal with them as a Muslim woman. And to demand of a Muslim that we change either our dress, or that I can't have a job because my head is covered, or I can't have a job because I wear a longer dress, that is something that the West is going to have to adjust to as we come into the struggle. So far, we are being pushed aside on many issues of dress. I'm a certified paralegal, but I can't work in a law office because I don't take this off. These are things that will have to be changed in order for the Muslims to fully participate. If the West is going to demand that we become less Muslim or less Islamic, then no, we will not participate in that sense. If that's what mainstreaming is, becoming like everybody else, then no. Then we have to draw a line. If, however, it means do we participate fully in correcting the wrongs in the society, then we are not only supposed to do it, we are obligated to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, a couple of more points on this. Well, of course, as John said, the theological foundation of Muslim women participating in all affairs of society is well established. There have been a slight difference of opinion in interpreting one particular hadith about being head of the state. I don't want to get into that detail, but it's not really a matter of belief, or, there are various ways of interpretations of this. But I think what you were concerned about is how does that relate historically or in the present time. I can give you 3 examples that relate to the methodology that I mentioned in my earlier presentation this morning. The distinction, again, between a clear text in the Quran that you say the Quran says women shouldn't drive a car, for example. If you have such a text, nobody can argue with you. It's so clear. But this is not the case. You find many other interpretation has been subjected to the mood and the circumstances and the conviction and cultural norms, not Islamic norms necessarily, of the interpreter. I'll give you an example. The argument I heard about some of the jurists in Saudi Arabia, and by the way, this is the only country in the Muslim world that I've known that says restricts women from driving, that they say that this, to protect women, that there have been lots of people coming from other countries to work there, and there have been cases of molestation, and the best way is to make sure that woman is accompanied in the car, so that's for her protection. But this is not the Quran or Sunnah. This is an interpretation which is, to me, an erroneous interpretation. It is erroneous, number one, because the Prophet himself, when praising the women of Quraysh, he says, خَيْرُ نِسَاءٍ رَكِبْنَ الْإِبِلِ. Among the descriptions that they are the best women who rode camels. Their camels represented the Toyota and the Mercedes and the Buicks of today. That's their transportation. So why don't we look at it in that respect in terms of analogy? Secondly, even if there is some argument for protection against possible danger or molestation, why restrict women from driving in the city like Riyadh, where it's all full with people going and coming? So I find that, again, a jurist can say that, but I find that a sort of thing that is not really ingrained on a clear text. A second example, can a Muslim woman become a judge? And you find lots of arguments historically among various Muslim scholars, jurists. Can a woman be a judge or not? There is no text in the Quran or hadith of the Prophet directly saying this. So it becomes a matter of interpretation. That's why you find some scholars raised in a given closed community, more conservative community. They said, no, a woman cannot be a judge, and they give you all kind of rationale similar to the rationale of not driving. Yet you find Imam Abu Hanifa raised in Iraq, which is a more cosmopolitan community, is of the opinion by saying that if the witness of a woman is accepted in certain areas of the law, then why not her being a judge? Because there are similarities between being a judge and being a witness. Then you find an Imam al-Tabari looking at it in a more open way, the famous Mufassir of the Quran, interpreter of the Quran. He says no. He says there is no text whatsoever, neither in the two primary sources of Quran, of Islam, Quran and Hadith, that restrict that. He says there is no ground, and in his opinion, that a woman could be a judge in any aspect of the law. So these are just a few. Another example is the question of witness, only in financial contract, because some people went too far again, whether you really need more women than men and all of that. You find again that many jurists would tell you that the ultimate thing in the matter of witness is to establish justice. In our situation today, where a woman might have an MBA degree from Harvard University and knows about financial dealing than many men sweepers, how could we say that the judge could still reject her in a dogmatic basis and say, no, there should be more witnesses of women than men, because the purpose is to establish justice itself. And finally, 2 points. When we compare also historically, we have to be careful as to what point of time are we comparing and what part of the world are we comparing with. Unfortunately, Muslims are at a great disadvantage now, because you're comparing a particular level of progress in the West, Christian West, quote unquote, if that term is correct, which I doubt anyway, vis-a-vis the decline, the period of being in the lower ebb in point of history. But if you go back, compare it differently, at the time of the Prophet and his immediate companions, we find that women were involved in everything, including the battlefield, including fighting even, when they chose to defend the Prophet and defend their faith. That is the ideal, and that's the point of reference and of comparison. And finally, sometimes also, given the tradition in the Western society, even though of course I'm not saying that or implying that that's what you believe, but a lot of people, I'm talking about the public, somehow equate Islam with Arabs in the Middle East, not knowing that the Arabs, all the Arabs together, Muslims and Christians, are a small minority compared with the 1 billion Muslims, that the largest Muslim country is non-Arab, Indonesia, that there are in India a Muslim minority that is twice as large as the largest Muslim country in the Arab world, which is Egypt, 60 million versus 120 in India, for example. But the point here is that Islam is not, or Muslim world is not a monolithic thing. You could find, yes, in a place like Saudi Arabia, where a woman cannot even drive. Yet, you go to Egypt, for example, next door, and you find that women are serving in the highest possible position in the states. Some are in assembly, in the representative assembly. You go to Indonesia, you find that the role and engagement of women is different. In Nigeria, it is not the same like other places. So I think, again, which area are we comparing? There's a great deal of diversity, but the criterion really, how far or close are they to the ideal?
Before I move to Dr. Ivan, do you have a comment on what was said, Dr. Barkoski?
Well, the comment would only be that it's true about Egypt and a couple other places, but I see a challenge to that. And if I could say this respectfully, I mean, it seems to me that most of the women who have served in those positions